Hi there! In today's video, I'm sharing 3 tips and a writing freebie that you can take back to your K-2 classroom to use with your beginning or struggling writers. If you find the tips and freebies shared in this video to be beneficial for you and your students, then be sure to hit the notification bell below and give this video a thumbs up so that you can see more videos like this one. Also, if you're needing immediate support when it comes to your writing instruction, then be sure to check out the link in the description box below where I share the link to my K-2 writing program called Building Primary Writers. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the 3 tips on how to best support your beginning and struggling writers. Okay, so tip number 1, my first tip is called the blank line strategy. And this is a process that you can explicitly model to your students, and then they can practice and hopefully have it become a natural process for them. But really, it's a concrete representation to show them the step-by-step process of coming up with an idea and then how we turn that idea into written form and what that looks like. So it really breaks it down into bite-sized bits that are much more approachable for an early writer or a struggling writer. Okay, so here are the steps to the blank line strategy. Step 1 is you want your students to say what they want to write aloud and then hold up a finger for each word and count the words. So say the sentence that I want to write is, I love my dog. I'm going to then hold up a finger for each word and count the words. I love my dog. Now, I do want to mention that this think aloud time where we say the thing that we want to write aloud is so important for early writers and struggling writers, but really for everyone. And that's because human brains are naturally wired for speech, but they are not naturally wired for reading and writing. So if you have a student that has very little exposure to writing, maybe they've written their name or a few words, or they've really struggled with writing, it makes sense to give them that processing time so that they can stir up those ideas before we ask them to write. All right, so step number 2 is to place a counter and draw a line for each word you say. So for example, if my sentence is, I love my dog, I'm going to use a counter to represent each of the words that I've said. And this counter is kind of the bridge between an idea or something that we say and the words that we need to write. The counter is going to be that concrete representation before they write the word. The final step is to repeat what you've said aloud, but this time write one word on each line or in place of the counter, and then sound out each word as you're writing it. And that's why that counter is so important, that we use that and we have that blank line so that students understand that the words that we're saying aloud, they're actually individual words that make up a sentence. And we can then take that and put that into our writing in the same way. So you're going to want to explicitly model this over and over again. And it might seem a little clunky now as I explain it, but as you do this with your students, you want this to become a natural process for them so that they don't have to walk through each step each and every time. It's just something that comes natural for them. And eventually they won't need to use the blank line strategy, but it's really effective for early and struggling writers. All right, so tip number 2, my second tip is to make mentor texts your BFF. And what I mean by this is if you're asking your students to add details to their writing, add juicy details, and you have an example that you've modeled, pull examples from your library that also show this. And this is going to be so much more powerful than trying to stir up something on the whim of what you want your students to do. Find examples that are already done for you that allow you to kind of step back and let the published books do the work for you of showing your students what you're looking for. This is going to be so powerful for your kids too, because they're going to see, oh, these are published authors. I can do this in my writing, and pull up some examples that really model what you're looking for. When you're using mentor texts as models and examples for your students, think beyond just the text in the story or the writing style and that you want your students to mimic that. Look at the illustrations, and maybe some illustrators add some interesting details, or they add something that is different from other books that they've read, and you want them to try to add those parts to their own illustrations. Or maybe the book covers are unique and you want to try to use those as a source of inspiration. Or maybe some of the text in the body is really big and really small at some parts, or it drips down the page. Use the whole text as a source of inspiration for your students to add to their own writing. And I also want to mention the importance of illustrations for primary students. Illustrations are equally as important for young writers as the writing is. So when you think of young writers, a lot of the storytelling is going to take place in the picture. So encourage them to add details to their illustrations, because the more details they add to their illustrations, the more you can try to encourage them to add those details to their writing. So to make your life a little easier, I've already created a list of my favorite mentor texts that you can use alongside each writing genre that you teach, and you can download that list by clicking the link in the description box below. Okay, so let's jump into tip number 3, our final tip, which is to honor and celebrate all writing. What I mean by honoring and celebrating all writing is that we really draw attention to what our students are doing. Taking the time to look at what they're doing every day and praising them for their efforts is so important, and it's going to pay off big time in the long run. And this doesn't mean you have to have some lavish publishing party after every writing genre. I mean, you can if you want to, but really this is more about taking the time to look at the small things that your students are doing each and every day and celebrating those things. So we did this many different ways in my classroom, but oftentimes it would just be as simple as pulling a few students, not always the strongest examples, but pulling a few students at the end of our writing lesson up to the front of the classroom and have them share what they had written that day with the class. And that would be great for the student to share and then receive praise from me, but also it would give the class the opportunity to ask questions, to give a compliment, and just to hear from their classmate, to hear what they're writing about, to maybe inspire them in their own writing as well. Okay, so let's be real. Some days you won't have time to praise your students in front of the class, and you won't have time for students to share with a partner, and that's okay. I just mean that you want to make it a habit to celebrate your students' writing and to celebrate all writing, even if that means that you have a struggling writer who has written one word. Take the time to honor that one word. Take the time to honor the little illustrations that your students have done, even if they're little doodles. You just want to celebrate writing and make it something that is enjoyable for your students so that we can build lifelong writers. All right, so those are the 3 tips that I wanted to share today on how to best support your beginning and struggling writers. And I have lots of other tips on how to support those students that I can share in future videos if you would be interested. So be sure to let me know down in the comments if you'd like me to share those, or if you'd like me to share any other tips and strategies that I have for any other content area as well. Also, be sure to download the freebies that I have for you. You can click the link down in the description box where I share the freebie links that you can download and access. I hope that this video was helpful, and don't forget to click the notification bell down below and give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. All right, I'll see you in the next video.